Your Thursday Browns film breakdown is all about the injury report that we have finally received for both teams for week 8. The line in this game, which is surprising to us early in the week here. And then we want to spend some time talking about the connection Mike Vrabel had to Cleveland and, think about whether that's going to matter immensely this weekend. And after that, a fantastic guest will join us for Behind Enemy Lines. So let's get going with the latest Browns film breakdown brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Hopefully this podcast finds you well on a Thursday. We are digging our teeth into week 8. We have pretty much wrapped up everything at the site with coverage of last week's win. You got offensive breakdown, defensive breakdown. You got a write-up on the 46-yard touchdown run from Quinshon Judkins. You got a write-up on, really a film room on Dylan Gabriel's opportunities missed and some trends that are showing up in his film. You also received some Wildcat snap stuff. You got on the defense, the full film room over there. And then this morning, spent some time in the opening drive going through some sim pressures and fire zones that Schwartz put in. And an interesting thing will be whether those continue into the future. So if he's going to make that a big part of what he's doing mid-season change up here, I think as we get into some good quarterbacking here from Drake May, it'll be interesting to see if that carries over. But everything you could want about the Week 7 win is available. Now we turn the page really here with our Thursday pod and into the weekend, into Week 8. Brad, I think you mentioned that the line is 7. The Patriots are laying 7 at home in this. That's a bit surprising to me. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a bit of I thought it would be shorter than that, to be honest. And 7 is a weird number. So, you would expect it to go to 7.5 or 6.5 because it becomes very inviting for one side or the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are a true believer in the Patriots and what they're doing right now at their 5-2 record now, you got to account for they have 4 really easy wins and 1 signature win over Buffalo, right? I believe it's like the Titans, Saints, Panthers, and missing somebody else bad, Jets maybe. But yeah, 4 wins that aren't very good. And then their signature win over Buffalo. So where do you stand with the Patriots is kind of a weird place around the NFL. Some people are believers, some people aren't. The 7 number seems really long.
Titans are the recently. And did you say
Titans?
Yep. I don't think you did. But yeah, they've taken care of business against who they should have taken care of business against outside of the Bills. But I think we can all simultaneously know the Bills are going to be in it at the end of the season while recognizing right now they're not playing very good ball. I mean, that's transcended between that game and then I think it was Atlanta got them too. So they're not playing all too well right now. Well, by the end of the year, I expect them to be right in the heat of the AFC. But yeah, they've essentially lost 2 games. I mean, the Raiders loss is really strange at home, open the year, a pretty weird one. And then they handed the game to Pittsburgh. That's the only other real team they played. They have 5 fumbles in that one. Pretty bizarre game in all reality. I don't know. This is an interesting Patriots team. I mean, they are taking care of teams they should, but haven't been challenged defensively like the Browns will roll in there. Even if you get it's not Jekyll and Hyde, because I don't think the opposite of their really elite stuff is bad, but it's not as good on the road. Even if you don't get that, still one of the better defenses that Drake May and the group have played this year. So that's going to be interesting to track. And I think 7's a little large. I think it should be 4.5, but the Vegas stuff gets their teeth into it, probably adds a couple points to it to get some people on both sides of that line. And I feel like it's going to go down, if anything, throughout the rest of the week. So if you are a believer that you want 7 points with Brad, I'd get it now.
Yeah,
on FanDuel.
I would think. If you like the Browns defense in this to travel and play well in this matchup, or you like this matchup, you get it now because I think it will go down too. I can't imagine it going up, Jake.
I can't either. So there you go. There's your daily dose of I wanted to look. I like looking at the early lines middle of the week, so I think that's an important thing for us to do, just to gauge where Vegas thinks both teams are. We'll try to be more consistent with that, simultaneously looking at some other things of relevance, maybe some of those like Carson Schlesinger Rookie of the Year award type stuff. So we'll keep our eye on that. We do have the injury report, which is lengthy, which is not unexpected this time of year. despite being lengthy, there's not a ton of DMPs on there, except for one surprising one for the Browns. Do you have that, Brad?
Jerry Jeudy?
Yes. So Judy's
DMP.
knee issue is new from everything we gathered. And then Aiden Huntington had a concussion that is still
Didn't know
lingering
that.
into this week,
Yeah.
but limited for Joel and Malik Collins with rest. So they'll be fine. Tyson Campbell quad limited. You have a Mason Graham knee limitation. Full practice early in the week for Mike Call. So I would imagine you're going to lose Aiden Huntington this week, but you will regain a player at the position with Mike Call. That's trending in the direction for him to finally make a debut there. Shelby Harris with a knee issue. He's limited. Rayshawn Jenkins wrist limited. And Njoku knee limited, but was out there practicing, doing drills, doing push-off based things. I think he's probably trending in a good direction, even though Kevin continues to say he's very much day by day. Denzel Ward with a hip designation, and then Blake Whitehart with a shoulder designation. That is your limited guys. But the only two who didn't practice, Huntington and Jeudy. So
yeah, the Jeudy one is kind of odd, popped up out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from.
I don't either.
Has Stefanski spoken to that at all?
If he did, he's obviously spoke to the media today. I think he's not giving anything away, just that it maybe popped up. I can try to check here real quick. No, he didn't speak to it today. So maybe he will tomorrow. This probably came out after he went outside and they released the report. So that'll be a question for him tomorrow. On the other side of things, I mean, if you're missing Jeudy to close the circle on that topic, it gets into dire situation at wide receiver.
It does.
We haven't heard anything about Cedric Tillman progress from his. I think it was a groin or hammy. I can't remember which one, honestly, but you're in a very difficult spot against more talented secondaries than the ones, than the one you specifically just faced in Miami. So yeah, they need Jerry to play. So it's not good.
They got Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash, both played kind of an uptick, I think, a little bit in playing time this week. More of a mixed bag with him and Bond, with them and Bond, maybe kind of a committee across from Jeudy. Now if Judy's out, who knows? But Corley is
with
kind
Njoku out, you saw a big uptick. They went up to like 62% 11 personnel in this one. So if they revert, you're probably without Jeudy looking at a lot of Thrash and Bond, I would guess. And then Corley kind of as a bigger body guy might get in there too. You're right about the mixed bag thing. It'll be interesting to see who they're starting to trust mid-season here.
Yeah. I thought that Thrash and Corley did okay in their, nothing crazy, but they did okay. Corley, at least he blocks well. I think he's more of a
just brings more
guy that'll do the
body
dirty work
to it. Yeah, he's a bigger guy. This is different than Thrash, Bond, or Jerry. To be honest, all three of them are kind of wiry types. So, you never dislike having a wide receiver who weighs a little bit and can get some mass behind his blocking. On the Patriots side, Barmore, not injury related, so he'll be fine. They're stellar defensive tackle. Stephon Diggs with the chest was limited. Sure, he'll play. Their best pass rusher, Harold Landry. This is where they don't have a great pass rush, so kind of plays a little bit into the Brown struggle. So he's limited with an ankle. A DMP for Ponder, this linebacker for them, not sure. And then a safety Woodson. We'll learn more about who's in and out, what the trends are with our guests today. So the guys who, looking at their roster matter, Christian Gonzalez is full practicing, their best corner. Barmore will be fine. Landry looks like he'll be fine. So we'll talk more in detail about Patriots knowledge here in just a little bit, but not a devastating injury report by any means, but the Jeudy one does make you tilt your head a little bit, and it seems like Njoku's on a better path than before. So there you go. There's your injuries.
I think they could be critical in Njoku this week. They're going to need him, I think.
Definitely going to need him. I think they're out of their comfort zone in a lot of that 11 personnel stuff, so we'll see if they can get back to a spot they're more comfortable. The thing we want to talk about to wrap up the open here is the looming Vrabel stuff, like how much we think it matters. Kevin was asked about this today. The question was phrased, does Mike Vrabel, knowing you guys so well, give them any extra advantage? He said, I think having a coach here last year, obviously you share, or having coach here last year, obviously you share a lot of things to each other. You talk about different philosophies, those types of things, but I don't know that there's trade secrets, those types of things. I think that's being nice, to be honest with you. Obviously, the offense was maybe a little coded differently last year because Ken was super heavily involved,
Yeah.
but he knew he's here every day. He's
Every
in all the
day.
coaches meetings. So he knows everything they like. He knows what they, between the 7 games of film they have on the Browns and what he's watched, consumed, and understood about the offense and really the defense. That's why I think Schwartz is like,
That's
hey,
where
let's practice some of this stuff this week against Miami to take to New England because we got to be different because he knows everything about what they do. I'm just gonna say it's for a full season, and he was like very engaged. He wasn't going to go on road games. Then he was going to road games on the sidelines, talking to every player at times. Vrabel's got the ticket here. I mean, it's the Browns' challenge is being different. What are they going to do to be different? Because if you show up and expect to just run your stuff on both sides of the ball in this game, he's going to have a real advantage. So I do think that downplaying it is typical of Kevin, but to me, he was involved in every single thing. And it's no different than Ben Johnson going to play the Lions. It's similar, although he's not involved maybe so much on what the defense is doing on the other side there. But Braves was involved in a lot of different things. He was helping linebackers at times. He was helping tight ends at times. He was spending time with Tommy Reese at times. There was a thought that he might take Tommy Reese with him as his OC. It was such a developed bond there. So, I think this is like, it's not nothing. It's beyond not nothing. I think it's not. I think the phrase is it's not everything. It's the Browns' job to combat what they know he knows, but it matters. And the thing here to see is like how overwhelming it'll be if they don't alter some of who they are.
I think it matters a great deal, and I think that from what we've seen from Kevin so far this year, where he hasn't really changed or done a ton of different things on a week-to-week basis, this has to force him into a territory where he has to come prepared with some wrinkles and some tendency breaking stuff, or else you're going to be really stuck in the mud, I think, against a team that really understands or has a grasp of what you're trying to accomplish offensively. And then on the other side of the ball, I think I'm even more concerned is that Vrabel knows how to beat Schwartz's defense at its base schematic level. So to your point,
you think about this too. I'm pretty sure wasn't Schwartz an analyst with Vrabel in Tennessee?
Pretty sure they were together in Tennessee.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of
they go way
connection
back
here. They go way back. They know each other, and they know Vrabel's theory on defense. It's two teams that are going to know each other well. Now, the Josh McDaniels running that offense is the wild card. He's had some pretty good success against Schwartz, as we know. Like, in that Super Bowl win, it's not like the Patriots, and it's Tom Brady. I get that, all that stuff. It's like they weren't struggling to put up points on Schwartz. I think that, I'm just very interested in all of it because the Schwartz is known, his process is known. Between McDaniel's game planning for him in the Super Bowl, and obviously, you look at what Schwartz was connected with, what they were trying to do in Tennessee's defense, which was really fun for a while there. As he joined them as an analyst, and then Vrabes comes over here. It's just, I guess it's which team throws the highest rate of curveballs, and that's why I said I think I'm not surprised that. But the offense went very vanilla last week. A lot of vanilla run game. And I'm not surprised the defense was working on some very unique stuff that I'm watching film. Like, that's not them. Like that is a very different approach. So they're aware of it. Feels like they understand it. The defense tried to practice to prepare for some things they're trying to throw at them, New England this week. And I think it's all pretty calculated, Brad, because this is a big game coming up. I think that it felt like the Browns knew the Dolphins were pretty bad and planned accordingly. And all the chips are on the table this week.
I didn't even think about that. If you remember, there was that long article that was written. I think me and you kind of passed it back and forth. It was super interesting back when Schwartz joined Vrabel in Tennessee. They kind of adopted Schwartz's scheme and then worked it in kind of with the coverages that they were doing on the back end and kind of made like a hybrid Schwartz. And who was the DC at the time?
His name is escaping me because I know what you're talking about. It was written maybe even by like Solak or somebody.
Yeah.
But it was about like they were doing a really good job of implementing some of his back half philosophies with what they were unique. Their unique fronts was the whole thing. So
and
I do recall
I
that
feel
very
like
well.
Schwartz took a lot of that with him to Cleveland, right? Even like because like the
Shane
knock
Bowen
on
was that defensive
yep,
coordinator.
yep, that's it.
Who's now the DC for the Giants, by the way. He's a Pickerington guy here in Columbus. I did not know that.
Yeah, because the knock on Schwartz when he left Philly was like that his back half coverages weren't modernized enough, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so when he got to Tennessee and he got to mix that with that and kind of take that in, and then he brought all that to Cleveland, that's kind of where they were at. So a lot of what Schwartz does and is implementing in the Browns over the past couple of years here is derived from when Vrabel was the head coach of that Tennessee team, which led to the Browns, and then and then Vrabel comes to the Browns. It's very incestuous, this whole thing here with them, and understanding of what they want to accomplish. Probably kind of goes vice versa too, a little bit for Schwartz on Vrabel too. I mean, I'm sure that he has a knowledge of the way that Vrabel thinks and Stefanski a little bit too. So I think it's probably more advantage Vrabel in this situation. But I think both sides have a knowledge of what the other wants to accomplish as a football coach or strategy wise.
Yeah, this is the ultimate chess match game. You know, what do they do differently than what they normally do on both sides? The Browns started to unveil more of that on the defense, but I'm fascinated offensively. If they don't look different, it'll be a pretty big bummer for knowing what they know about you and not coming up with some things to be different. Because if we're handing out the game ball last week for your DC and the defense changing and getting creative and a great game plan, be nice to give yourself a game ball for doing something like that on offense. It's a big week to do it. So we will be dialed in to all that. Listen, we got a great guest. Taylor Kyle's coming up. He's going to talk all things Patriots. He's got a better grasp on this team than anybody covering them. And even Vrabel in his own pressers has called out Taylor for noticing things in his film reviews. So that's a pretty respected situation over there. Let's get over to that real quick and talk all things Patriots to wrap up our show. We'll be right back. I couldn't be more happy to have Taylor with us. I don't think anyone, like I said, is covering the Patriots better. And it is it's an ascending football team over there. And I make the joke, man, like, all right, you guys had like a couple years off over there. Patriots fans must have just had it so rough that they, just a couple years of mediocrity, and now they're 5-2 again. So walk us through. The Browns fan base here is kind of probably rolling their eyes, Taylor. Walk us through how they're 5-2, man, and what the vibe is over there.
The vibes are much higher than they've been. So I got to the beat 2 years ago. So I've seen 3 head coaches in 3 years. My first year, vibes were pretty good. They did have a decent team. But then you started to see the cracks as the season went on, and then it bottomed out once Mac Jones started to fail, and then that turned into the disaster it was last year. Vibes are high again at the beginning because Gerard Mayo's there. They win their first game. He's a guy who's already on the staff that they liked. Then it became very clear that he had a ceiling that he could reach as someone who just did not have nearly enough experience or infrastructure to be successful. And then vibes shot down. Now,
do you think he would have stayed? I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you think he would have kept that role if Vrabel wasn't on the market? Like that's something I'm interested in, because it feels like Vrabel Patriots mesh is just like almost meant to be. So I was curious if like Vrabel's not out there. Maybe he got scooped up after the first year was in. Like I think the Chargers were really serious about maybe hiring him, but I was curious if it was so separately bad with Gerard that they felt like no matter what they had to move on, or like, hey, Vrabel's right there and we probably need to make this happen now.
I think the Vrabel thing is impossible to separate, to be totally honest. Yeah. But I did not think, like, I was one of the people saying, hey, it's this guy's first season. You got to be more patient. It's ridiculous to expect more from him given what he was handed. But then it got to the point where it's like, oh, he's making himself a spectacle. Like every week he was saying the wrong thing in the media. Players, you could tell, just started kind of speaking out in ways that they hadn't before. And it just got toxic. And I think after that bye week, when they lost to, I believe it was the Colts or the Cardinals or someone like that, I was like, they can't. This isn't sustainable. You are so far behind that to get to the point where Gerard Mayo is a decent head coach, you're going to be wasting a year or two of Drake May's career. So I didn't think that it was sustainable to keep him around.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah. So 5-2. I think people look at the schedule, see some games they should have won. They have won. They go into Buffalo. That's a huge win. And I know you break down film in a way that I do too. And is your vibe that this is a team that's ready to really continue to ascend, or is it like, let's see them versus a defense that can really play?
That's huge. I think for a lot of Patriots fans, they see this Browns defense as the biggest test. I think the Steelers were a very good test. A lot of veterans similarly deep on the defensive line. And then obviously Buffalo was another big test, but they haven't seen anything like this Browns defense. So I think this will be the litmus test for, okay, are these guys legit? Is this offensive line legit? Because in pass protection, for the most part, they've been stellar. That has to do with Drake May, the offensive line, running backs chipping, Josh McDaniels play calling. Like, it's a lot of different things. But last week kind of took a step back, especially on the interior against the Titans. And that was with Jeffrey Simmons going down in the first quarter. So this is absolutely going to be a litmus test for how well this offensive line can function, whether the improvements they made in the ground game are legit, and they can actually pull that off against a really ferocious front, and whether they can throw against a good secondary.
Yeah, let's hit on Drake May. Seems to be playing some of the best ball in the league this year. Big time step this year. So, yeah, man, to just give us your thoughts on how he's putting together a season. You said he's protecting the O-line a little bit, balls out fast. That seems to be what's hurting the Browns defense. When some teams figure them out, obviously Aaron in Pittsburgh gets the football out quicker than anybody. The Vikings did that really. And Myles Garrett illuminated this. I'll throw you kind of the general idea of what he's talked about. I tried to talk about it. Myles, ironically, has said the same thing on his Friday time with the media. Like, teams were very comfortable with how bad the Browns offense is. So they're just very calculated, very, hey, man, it's 3rd and 14. We're just going to throw something that maybe gets us some yak. If it doesn't, we'll punt. It's fine. Let's just get the football out. Let's stay on schedule. Is that a place you see them living in this game? Because obviously the Browns offense, which we'll talk about how the Patriots defense aligns with that in just a minute, but it feels very much like that structure is in place of, like, we'd want to avoid the 3-second or more drop back stuff. So I don't know how much they're living in that world. So I'm kind of like, is that going to be, if they're in a sped up tempo, we're going to run, pass, kind of keep everything very calculated on schedule, no problem scoring 17, 20 points to win. Like, is that a place Josh McDaniels is comfortable living in this one, you feel like?
I think they're comfortable with whatever they got to do because of Drake May, to be honest. I do think that they always want to be balanced. They want to run the ball because Josh does such a good job scheming his play action shots and marrying the run and the pass. Like, he does it so well. They haven't had to run the ball well because the way that they execute and the way that their offensive line run blocks to make it seem like they're actually handing it off, it's done a really good job opening things up. But with Drake, man, he's been phenomenal. I thought that he was going to be outstanding under Josh McDaniels. I think people, because of his head coaching issues, forget that he's one of the best play callers, play designers, and coordinators in the league. But Drake's ability to pick things up quickly, like, he's a football cyborg. This offseason, the biggest point of emphasis was keeping your eyes downfield, stepping up and actually transitioning in the pocket and being that more traditional passer. And then, kind of like the Patrick Mahomes rule, after 2.5 seconds or if things break down, then go make magic, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Hasn't been perfect. Like against Tennessee, you did see a step back for him in terms of scrambling when he had opportunities to throw downfield, sometimes not protecting himself. But the biggest issue that I've had is him not always protecting himself, because the accuracy was a little shaky in the first week or two. That hasn't been a problem, which is astounding because this is a guy who in college and even at times last year, he'll have some weird misses where you're not even sure if he was throwing it away or if there was a miscommunication, or if he really did just miss by yards. And I haven't really seen those. He'll have maybe one a game, but that's about it. And that's with a bunch of insane throws on top of it. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks throwing quick. Under pressure, he's been one of the best. He's top 10 in passer rating and pretty much everything. I really can't say enough about the kid. He is a real problem. And if the Patriots are in 3rd and 14, they're not going to throw a screen. They're going to chip the ends, and they're going to say, hey, Drake, let that thing ring, go downfield. Now, I don't know if you saw the Saints game, a perfect example. Yeah. They had a penalty on 3rd and 7, backed them up to 3rd and 17. Then Drake, while stepping up and getting his jersey pulled by Chase Young, on course a 50-yard bomb to Stephon Diggs that the defender couldn't touch. Somehow Diggs gets called for a phantom pass interference. 3rd and 27, he goes back the next play and throws another 50-yard bomb, this time before he takes a hit. And it was just outside of the defender's reach. So that tells you the kind of confidence his coaching staff has in him. I thought they were going to call a screen. I'm like, 3rd and 27. Don't do anything stupid. It's not stupid with Drake May. And even last week, 2-minute drill, they think that they're going to take all this time off the clock. He throws a bomb to Kayshon Boutte with like 50 seconds left. They're like, I don't care. We'll score again if you give us the ball too fast. So, yeah, I'm gushing right now, but I can't say enough about what this 23-year-old sophomore quarterback is doing 7 weeks through the season.
That's the good stuff, man. When your offense isn't limited by down and distance, that's when you got a ceiling that's I would say it's just the most fun element to be in as an offense. So that's interesting to hear. I know the Browns are a little. I think the way they played the Dolphins, their complete the huge man team with Schwartz, and they went like 14% man, heavy blitz packages, sim pressures, and like only 14% man, and like a huge amount of zone stuff. You'll see it if you watch some of that game. I mean, I know it's like you got to keep your eyes open, Clockwork Orange style, to watch some of the stuff there. He got funky, and I think it's because these two teams. I think the perception, at least, is Vrabel knows the Browns really well. Obviously, you can't be inside someone's building and very entrenched in what they're doing without that element. So I'll just ask you that now, then we'll finish up on the personnel. Like, is the vibe that and I know Vrabel's going to be very timid about it. Kevin's kind of doing the same thing, right? But it really matters, Taylor, to spend a year inside someone's organization when no coaching staff changes. The Browns introduced a few new players, but I certainly think it's an advantage for Vrabel, who just is the most vicious athlete or like competitor, that's in the coaching industry. So I do think he's going to have a leg up.
Definitely. And I'm not sure it's like the Tennessee game, of course, which is crazy. He has kind of back-to-back games against his former teams that he used to coach on. But it absolutely is, because this is someone who is insanely detail-oriented, as Patriots fans are seeing, both in practices, in games, when he's telling officials, no, you just missed a call, and then they have to end up correcting it. So I would absolutely assume that with someone like Kevin Stefanski, who is also very detail-oriented and is good at communicating to his staff, I would assume what their message is, the things they want to get done, and Vrabel having worked on the offensive staff with some knowledge of just the defensive personnel, I would absolutely think that would give him some level of an advantage, just like a former player who'd been in the team for a long time. Then if you like sign into the practice squad or whatever, can give you some of the tea.
Yeah, no, there's like Jim Schwartz was also an analyst for him before he came to Cleveland and Tennessee. So like how these two combat each other, and the more I think about how the Schwartz went about that Dolphins game to make Vrabes think a little bit more, and the group obviously think a little bit more about what they might do. I think it's kind of calculated, because these are two like self-scrimmage types, man. They know what Vrabel likes to do, obviously, just as much on the flip side. So I am kind of fascinated when we break this one down after Sunday. It's like, oh, they did some stuff differently here because they just flat out had to do it differently. So it'll be interesting. So, okay, quickly close up the offense loop here. How's Will Campbell, the O-line, doing? And then obviously you got Diggs, and he's having a nice bounce back season. But what are the other weapons Browns fans need to be aware of?
Yeah, so the left side of the offensive line is both rookies. Will Campbell has looked very good. I think he's done a better job playing inside out. That was huge for him, because in college, what really scared me were the inside moves and how those would be quick losses where he had really no chance to recover. He's pretty much nipped those in the bud. His losses really come late, sometimes around the edge, or when he gives his chest, because he's just saying, you're not going to get around me. And he'll get walked back at times, but I would say knocked back, not really walked back, because he still has a really good anchor. Jared Wilson, former Georgia center, is now their left guard. He's undersized next to Garrett Bradbury, the center, and that really shows up in the run game. So that's going to be something to note. But Jared, when he's on his game, is freaky, man. He's like Will Campbell. Really athletic, super flexible, really strong hands, great recovery ability. So when those two are on, you can see a future, but I do think Jared's probably better at center, and there are those deficiencies. In terms of the weapons, yeah, this receiving core, I said during the summer that these guys were putting in the work and looked better than receiving cores the Patriots have had in the past, where you're thinking you just need some veterans and some pros, and then ideally for your young guys to develop. That's finally happened. Kayshon Boutte's breaking out. He's been one of the most productive receivers in football by EPA, a really good deep threat. Stephon Diggs has shown he can be a 3-level threat with a guy like Drake May, who can either throw him open deep, or Diggs being able to get open short to intermediate. Struggles a bit against press. Like if guys really do, like Tyson Campbell, if he's able to get his hands on Diggs, then he can win some of those matchups. But I think against like a Denzel Ward, that could be a fun matchup where it's really just two guys who are really savvy trying to run with each other. Demario Douglas hasn't had as big of a role as he did when he was one of the leading receivers this summer, but he's been electric, made a couple deep plays against the Saints. And Hunter Henry just been all reliable, doing anything they need him to do. Same with Austin Hooper and Ramondre Stevenson out of the backfield. Travion Henderson, we were all really excited about. He was outstanding this summer. I feel like everybody who knew about him coming out of college knew as a pass protector, he was one of the best backs in the league. But this pass protection system for the Patriots is very different. You're given a ton of responsibility. They're not trying to throw hot. They're trying to make sure that that sixth man is blocked up and they can just do what they got to do. And Travion struggled in that department, whereas Ramondre is one of the best pass protecting backs in the league. Also, I think Travion has struggled with the speed of the NFL game. If you watch his tape, he's kind of just running into blockers on screens. There's no setting things up. It feels like he's just running straight ahead and not really creating or maximizing space. So in the backfield, it's really the Ramondre Stevenson show for the most part. But you don't know who's going to lead them in receiving. Like there was weeks where it was like Kayshon Boutte, then it was Hunter Henry, then it was Ramondre Stevenson in Miami, and it's been Stephon Diggs more consistently. But really, any week, they can just exploit whoever's open and whoever the game plan says is going to have the most opportunity. So it's been fun to watch. They really do like to spread the ball around.
Yeah, man, Josh is good. He's just like you said, as much hate as he gets, and I think some of that is deserved as a head coach. People just completely forget about how good he is at just when he focuses on offense and just like the little details of that stuff, man. Like I've seen some things they did to the Saints to take advantage of some of the match cover 3 stuff and kind of turning a guy up the hash, and he's good. And I'm the chess match there is going to be pretty fascinating. Let's talk defense. I know they spent some money. They went after Milton Williams, and I know Barmore's obviously a dude for them. How's the pass rush doing? Because I think that's where people would look at the roster and say, oh, that's probably a rough area for them.
So the numbers don't reflect how well I think they've actually played. And they've been a little bit inconsistent at times, but they're seeing a lot of chips, seeing a lot of doubles. There's a lot of 6 and 7 man protections, and they mostly only rush 4. They'll blitz out a man sometimes in zone, but that's more DBs. Like they're mostly relying on their front. Milton Williams is obviously the biggest name. He's like the highest paid player in Patriots history right now. He has been very productive. All these guys against pass and run, that's something they pride themselves on, is really being physical and wanting to be a well-rounded group. Caleb Chaison's also been awesome. I got to say, he was just the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. He had a touchdown where, Cam Ward, the ball just fell out of his hand, but Caleb Chaison recognized a bootleg, was able to slip into the backfield, so I like the awareness. And then later, he very much won against the edge pretty quickly for a sack. Harold Landry, he's been banged up. He's dealing with an ankle injury, but he's been an impactful guy from them. And Christian Barmore, last season, unfortunately, dealt with blood clots, so he missed most of the season. When he played, he wasn't really himself. This offseason, they were very careful with him to make sure that he was just healthy first and foremost. And you really see, man, his numbers aren't there in terms of like sacks and hits. He has one of the highest pass rush win rates of any interior defensive lineman. It's because he's getting held like a lot. The impact he has is felt because he's on the ground. Like people are pulling him down because he's wrecking stuff, and you're doubling him. Sometimes that means Milton Williams is open. It's a big pick your poison situation. And if teams ever decide we're just going to go with our 5 offensive linemen and just ask all of them to win, that's a tough spot for them to be in. So I'd expect the Browns, if they ever want to go downfield, for that to be something where they're making sure that everybody's dealt with as much as possible, because 5-man pass pro will not work against these guys.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. It feels like there's some defenses that are just the cohesiveness of the 11 is more like if you put this group in Madden, it's probably not the highest rated defense player to player, but they get production, and Vrabel does a great job of getting them to buy into the messaging of what he's trying to get his guys to do. So Landry, I was going to ask about this because there's not many names on the injury report, but you think Landry's good to go?
I think so. He didn't practice at all last week until the last day, which, as you know, Friday is a pretty low-key day. They're not doing a whole lot. And then he played. It felt like it did have some kind of an impact, but he's back now. So I would think that he's back on the up, but it's still TBD for me.
Let's close with the secondary. It's obviously getting back Christian Gonzalez helps, but there's still some names like people probably remember Kyle Duggar, but I don't know how many guys are playing different roles. Things change with the new staff, new regime. So how's the back half playing?
So Jalen Hawkins has been banged up. So Kyle Duggar went from being almost exclusively a big nickel slot defender, where he's essentially used as like a linebacker close to the line of scrimmage. Now he's been more on the back end. He had one big play he allowed against the Saints, but Zach Core, their interim defensive coordinator, admitted that that was probably not a good call and that Duggar was expecting something else, which is what it looked like on tape. But against the pass, he's been quiet, which you like from your safeties. And against the run, there's one or two plays a game where you're like, damn, I forgot that Duggar could do stuff like that. So he's more in the mix as a starter. Craig Woodson didn't practice, so he could start again. But they really do like Jalen Hawkins and rookie Craig Woodson back there. That was the duo they had for a lot of the summer. And then in terms of just cornerback, obviously Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis on the outside and Marcus Jones on the inside. He is having a very impactful season so far. Been sticky in man coverage. He's making opportunistic plays and plays where you just see his IQ and just his playmaking ability. So the secondary has struggled. They've given up a lot of explosive plays. Some of that I think is on the scheme. They don't play a lot of robber in man coverage, a lot of blitzing. So if the quarterback has time, he can just throw it downfield, and those guys are at a leverage disadvantage a lot of the time. There's some things they do where they try to disguise their man looks as zone. So they'll just have the safeties take some like slot receivers sometimes, linebackers on tight ends. I pray to God they don't do that in this game, because if I see Roberts playing on David Njoku, I'm going to freak out. But like schematically, there's some things I might disagree with, but for the most part, they've been doing pretty well on the back end. But they also haven't played a lot of offenses or pass games specifically that could test them. So, TBD.
I don't think that's going to be a huge issue this week. All right. Well, listen, this is great, man. Anything, I mean, I don't presume anything special teams wise, but the Browns have played some rough special teams unit. They do okay there. They I would imagine they would. It's kind of the MO of Patriots football for years, but does anything stand out special teams wise?
Marcus Jones is a dynamic punt returner. If it's a crucial situation, you do not want to punt with him having much of a chance to return. There was one he had, I think it was against the Panthers, where he didn't even have any blocks. Like everybody around him thought that he was going to fair catch it. So you see even Brendan Schooler, an all-pro, pulls up. Marcus catches it and starts running, and then Jack Gibbons and Brendan Schooler make this last-ditch effort to kind of make interference, and Marcus Jones returns it for a touchdown. So he's really impactful there. Kick return, they lost Antonio Gibson. He returned one for a touchdown on kick return against the Dolphins, so that was unfortunate. They're not as dynamic on kick return. Travion Henderson, because he's their second running back and they don't have any depth, they kind of took him off, so it's really just been Efton Chisholm and Terrell Jennings. Andy Borregales has been pretty lights out. He missed in Miami where he used to kick in college and, got some crap for that, and he hasn't missed since. The kid's been automatic, and Bryce Behringer's really good. Last one, Brendan Schooler, I mentioned him earlier. All-pro, is a phenomenal gunner and a guy who you're definitely going to hear his name at times. So, yeah, these guys aren't slouches. Jeremy Springer is coaching a very good unit.
Well, listen, man, it's a good football team. I know they're afraid of some elements of the Browns. This is a huge game for Cleveland, because for the first time in a long time, the AFC North feels uneven, uncertain this far into a season. And if they got to 3-5 before their bye and their schedule coming out of the bye, there is you got to squint really hard, but there's an outside chance you could have some fun here. But this game means everything. And I know Cleveland will bring their best. And obviously we know that New England's playing good ball, and it's a tough place to go win when that team's rolling in the right direction. That crowd gets crazy. So it'll be a great one. Taylor, man, appreciate you. We really appreciate it. I always let folks who come on in these Behind Enemy Lines segments remind folks where they can find you and your stuff. So that I always love to have one team with a great follow on Twitter.
Appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much. Over on Twitter, I'm at TKyles39. And if you want to check out any of my videos, we're over at Patriots Press Pass. And my website for all my written stuff is clnsmedia.com.
He's elite, man. He's going to go pretty dang far in this business. So we appreciate Taylor's time. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.